This is a piece of Catalpa wood that's been sitting in my shop for probably close to 8 years. That came from a neighbor's tree. All I'm doing here is just trying to get a rough idea where center is, so I have a place to attach the faceplate. What you're going to see is that I'm also going to trace around it. This is just to give me an idea where I want to kind of try to attach the faceplate. So at this point, we just got to remove some of the high spots. It's not about being exact by any means. Just try to get rid of some of the highest points that'll make it difficult for the faceplate. And then when I go to attach the faceplate, I'm using 1.5 inch long wood screws. Always practice safety. Wear a face shield or something else. Now that I've done a little bit of the face, just going to reach down and speed up the RPMs a little bit, shooting for roughly 550, just to make sure that I can keep everything smooth. You're going to see as I drag across, you're going to start to see the beginning of the circles that are being cut by the tool. And in this next part here, where at the edit, I'm going to change over to a round tool tip. Just helps for some easier control. You're hitting a smaller part of the wood. And now you can definitely see the rings starting to form. One of the things that's really important is to make sure that you stop frequently, check the cuts, check the wood, get an idea of where you're at. This here I noticed I needed to do a lot more in the flattening, so I went back to the square just because I can hog out a little more material faster. Now we're going to start working on the edge. Again, I'm going to start with the flat. I'm also looking at the wood, getting an idea how much I need to start removing, and just go ahead and enjoy. And at this point, I did an awful lot of cutting on the edge. I transitioned over to a round tip, once again, because it really helps with control. You're doing a simpler cut. I'm removing a lot of the tool marks. What you're also going to notice is that I get towards the end of the bowl, towards the headstock of the machine, the chips coming off turn into almost like sand, very small dust particles, and yet when I'm near the bottom, what would be towards the tailstock, you can see the chips are much bigger. The bigger chips means that you're hitting much more wood, and when you start getting chips that are almost ribbon-like, it means you're cutting wood all the way around in a single cut. If you look, I'm measuring across, it's about 2 3/4 inches in diameter. So what I want is something, a cleat that's going to be smaller than that. I happen to like working with a 2 1/2 inch, 2 1/4 inch cleat. All I did was measure from 1 1/8 of an inch from the center, draw a circle with the pencil, and now that will give me my guideline to make sure that my cleat's going to fit. It never hurts to double check just to make sure you got the right diameter of the circle. All I'm doing is removing more material so I can get to my cleat. The outer edge of the bowl, I could have easily cut that all the way off and made it completely flush, but I kind of like leaving that outer bowl, the edge portion of it. So now I grabbed a skew, and all I'm doing with a skew is kind of back cutting that cleat a little bit, just making a little bit of an angle. It helps for the four-jaw chuck to be able to grab and compress and hold on tight. And now that I've made the cleat, got to make sure that that chuck fits, which it does, which is great. I happened to start learning with the lathe tool using high-speed cutting tools, but with the invention of the carbide tip, it's a major game changer. One of the issues I have with the carbide tips is that those tips are very expensive, and Rockler has a really good tool where you can actually sharpen those. So Rockler, if you go online, you can find it there. The little blue plastic piece holds the end of the carbide tip portion, and you can see when I hold it up, it's actually much shinier now because it actually has sharpened. Now you can do that with the diamonds. You can do that also with the square bits. Just a word of caution, don't over sharpen. They do get thinner, and as they get thinner, they're going to crack and break. This does not get you out of buying them. It just means you may get a few more cuts out of them than you would normally expect. Now I put the piece back onto the headstock using the four-jaw chuck, and that thing that I just showed you is a drill chuck with a Morse taper. The Morse taper fits into where your tailstock is, and the other piece that I'm putting in there is a Forstner bit. That happens to be a 1-inch in diameter Forstner bit. And all this is going to do is it's going to cut a hole in the center of your piece. The hole will be in the center, which will help give you a reference as you begin to hog out wood and cut portions. Remember, this is spinning on the playback at double speed. I'm only spinning at probably 300 RPM, maybe 400. So now let's just begin the process of hogging out the middle portion of your piece. And in this case, I'm using the square bit tip. And the RPMs of the piece is roughly 1,000, maybe 1,100. You can see in the center that I've removed an awful lot of the wood, and now you can also see the size of the chips change. This is a situation where you can see those big chips. They almost look like ribbons, and what that means is that I was cutting almost completely around the wood piece without any interruptions. Now just working on the outside, now that I'm kind of happy with the center, I'm going to start shaping the outside. First I'm going to use the square tip, carbide tip, just to do some roughing. Then I'm going to transition over to the round head. And again, that's just because it helps with easier control. As you're seeing again, as I come forward, the dust changes. So coming from the back to the front, you're going to see big long ribbons. And again, the ribbons means that you're cutting wood all in the same pass. Really get an idea how much wood is being cut in passes. You can see very long chips. You can see the dust as you start pulling back towards the bark. In this next section, you're going to see how much wood has been removed from the center. And really what I want to try to do is demonstrate how much chips are being removed with using just the round tool. As I start pulling towards the edge, you'll start hearing a pitch change. And what that means is that you're going from solid wood to open air pieces around the pieces of bark. So notice how you can start hearing the differences as you get closer to the bark. Do not be aggressive. Now it's time for sanding. Now in this case, this bowl happens to be open, so I can actually reach my hand inside. I encourage that if you do this, you be very careful. I'm going to start with 100 grit. I'm going to go to 120 grit, to 150, 220, and then also 320. Like I said, sticking your hand inside is not the safest way. This bowl happens to be very shallow and it's wide open, so I felt comfortable doing it. It's always a good idea to stop, check, see if you got marks, see if there's something that you're missing. And all I'm doing here is just some quick hand sanding, and I'll do that at all levels. So for finishing, I happen to like using shellac with it's been thinned with denatured alcohol. That's the shellac that I use, and then I cut it 50% with denatured alcohol, so it's a 1-to-1 ratio. And what I do is I mix it up, keep it in a bottle that's got a nice airtight on top. And then what I also have learned is that keeping your foam brush inside a large jar with a tight lid, that brush will last for weeks and weeks without hardening. It makes a heck of a difference. You can see the application, not overly being careful, just making sure you coat all the surfaces, and then obviously making sure that you don't drip too much anywhere. So doing the live edge portion, you'll notice using the foam brush, you rotate it, spin it. Do not try to push down on it because you're going to end up with big goobers going back into running down the side of the bowl. Put the foam brush back into the jar, close everything up, and I'll be ready for the next time. That there is a piece of sandpaper. I happen to make pens as well. That is, I believe, 3,000 grit sandpaper. It's a sponge. All you do is just a quick sand, take off the high edges, and then once again, wipe out the dust. And I'll go back through the same process again using the foam brush, making sure your material's mixed up, and apply it in the same manner. The number of coats that you apply is really up to you, and the finished product that I'll show you at the end here, I happen to do 6 coats in this exact same manner, same foam brush, same sandpaper, same everything. Some people choose again to go through and add polyurethane. That's up to you, but for this situation in this bowl, 6 coats using the 50-50 cut of shellac and denatured alcohol work just fine. The remaining pictures are all bowls done in the exact same fashion, also with Catalpa wood, except for that small one which happened to be black walnut. But they're all done in the same process. The largest bowl there happens to have a butcher block food finish inside it, and that worked just fine.